Okay, let's unpack this. Imagine a public figure, right? Someone who basically lives in the spotlight, known for being fiery, outspoken, absolutely unafraid to, speak their mind. Now, picture them facing this jaw-dropping $50 million lawsuit with accusations as serious as sexual assault and battery. Okay, and then imagine just absolute, complete, perplexing silence, not a word, no denial, no legal response filed, nothing. That's not some hypothetical scenario. That's exactly what seems to be happening right now with Shannon Sharpe.
It's truly remarkable, isn't it? I mean, Shannon Sharpe, Hall of Fame tight end, huge transition into being this dominant TV personality. He's definitely no stranger to controversy or making headlines. We all know that.
Yeah.
But the sheer lack of any response, public or, crucially, legal, to accusations this severe, that silence, honestly, in this context, it feels louder than almost any scandal we've seen from someone of his stature.
Yeah, louder is a good way to put it.
It immediately makes you ask these really profound questions, doesn't it? About legal strategy, about reputation management, and just how someone so prominent, so visible, could possibly choose this path of silence. It's baffling.
And that, for our deep dive today, that's really our central mission. We're going to try and pull back the curtain on this formal lawsuit filed against Shannon Sharpe. We'll lay out the accusations as we understand them from the filings, the staggering amount of damages being sought, and most critically, we'll try to dissect this, bewildering lack of response from Sharpe, especially with that crucial court deadline, July 9th, just looming.
Right around the corner.
Yeah. Our goal is really to distill what might be unfolding behind the scenes here and explore why this particular silence is so perplexing. I mean, especially since Sharpe hasn't exactly gone into hiding. He's still out there.
He's very much out there.
So let's get right into the core of it. We're talking about a woman. She's identified in reports as an OnlyFans model. She has formally filed a lawsuit against Shannon Sharpe in Nevada. The allegations detailed in this legal complaint, they're incredibly serious. Sexual assault, battery, and claims of causing severe emotional distress.
Yeah, these aren't just, rumors flying around. These are formal legal claims entered into the court system. And the plaintiff isn't just seeking, say, an apology or some quiet settlement. No, she is demanding a staggering $50 million in damages. That's a huge number.
$50 million. It's hard to even wrap your head around.
And what immediately jumps out from the legal filings, or rather the lack of them from his side, is the complete and utter absence of any formal engagement from Sharpe or his legal team.
Yeah.
There hasn't been a motion to dismiss filed, no request for an extension we know of, not even a basic official denial put into the court record.
Nothing at all.
Nothing formal, no. It's an almost unprecedented level of non-response for someone in his position facing these kinds of allegations. This isn't just unusual, it actively defies the typical legal playbook, the PR playbook, especially when you consider the sheer scale of what's at stake here, financially and for his reputation.
And like we said, this isn't just hanging out there indefinitely. The clock is ticking down fast. There's a very clear legal deadline for Sharpe to respond, and that date is July 9. If he fails to meet that deadline, well, the court has every right to just proceed without his input.
Exactly.
So what does that actually mean for him, practically speaking? It could lead to a default judgment, which, put simply, is basically a legal win for the accuser, right? Handed down essentially because Sharpe hasn't even shown up, legally speaking, to defend himself.
Precisely. And a default judgment in a case involving $50 million and these specific allegations can be utterly devastating. It's not just some procedural blip. It would legally establish the accusations as factual in the eyes of the court without Sharpe ever presenting his side of the story.
Wow. So the court just says, okay, these claims are true then.
Essentially, yes, because they went unanswered legally. Imagine the immediate fallout and the long-term ramifications for his career, his public image. That's the kind of damage that would be incredibly difficult, maybe even impossible to undo. It's a massive risk, one that most public figures and their lawyers would go to extreme lengths to avoid.
So, okay, given all that, it brings us right back to the central question. Why? Why would someone like Shannon Sharpe, with his prominence, his access to top-tier lawyers, PR teams, why choose what seems like such a perilous path? It just feels counterintuitive.
It really does.
Normally, when someone gets hit with something like this, especially for $50 million, they launch an aggressive defense, right? They hire those big-name attorneys, they issue strong denials, maybe even hold press conferences. But like you said, we've seen absolutely none of that from Sharpe. Zero. So what are the leading theories, if there are any? What are legal minds even speculating about this total silence, especially with July 9th so close?
Yeah, that's really the core paradox here, isn't it? Some legal experts have cautiously speculated it could be some kind of highly calculated tactical delay, maybe. The thinking, perhaps, is that his team is meticulously building some overwhelming defense behind the scenes. Or maybe they're waiting for a very precise moment to unveil it. Or perhaps even planning to challenge jurisdiction or the very basis of the lawsuit later on.
A surprise attack,
Yeah.
legally speaking.
Could be. Another theory, maybe a bit more speculative, suggests a hope that the lawsuit might just quietly fade away. Or maybe the plaintiff might withdraw. But honestly, cases involving such high-profile figures and these kinds of huge monetary demands, they rarely just evaporate. They tend to gain momentum, right? And the longer the silence continues, the more the public narrative gets shaped entirely by the accuser's claims.
But doesn't that strategy, if it even is a strategy, carry just immense risk? Because, as we've kind of touched on, Shannon Sharpe hasn't retreated from public life at all. He's not hiding. He's still active on social media, right? Still hosting his podcast, still doing media appearances.
Very visible.
So while he's totally present in the public sphere, this complete silence on this specific, enormous legal challenge, it feels like a ticking time bomb. What are the immediate downsides of this kind of, well, radio silence approach? Doesn't it just leave him incredibly vulnerable?
Oh, absolutely. Hugely vulnerable. The most significant downside, arguably, is the complete loss of narrative control. In the absence of his defense, any defense, the only story available is the plaintiff's. Period. This lets the accusations gain traction, lets them be perceived as basically unchallenged facts, and that can profoundly influence public opinion long before any actual legal resolution happens, if it happens.
So the court public opinion moves faster.
Much faster. And furthermore, it risks alienating potential future collaborator, sponsors,
Right.
people who might see this lack of response as either damning in itself or just really poor judgment. The longer this silence goes on, the harder it becomes to ever shift that public perception back, even if he eventually mounts a really strong defense down the line.
And just think about the sheer weight of what's actually at stake for him. Shannon Sharpe has spent decades meticulously building his brand, From that incredible NFL career, Hall of Fame, to his national TV presence on shows like Undisputed, and now, more recently, his really dynamic ventures with big names like Stephen A. Smith, connections in Hollywood. He's built himself into a legitimate media powerhouse.
Absolutely. A huge platform.
But one court ruling, one default judgment here, it could potentially just unravel all of that. We're talking about brands pulling sponsorships, networks potentially cutting ties, fans turning away. The entire legacy he's worked, 30 years to build, could be completely eclipsed, just overshadowed by this single, incredibly damaging situation if he doesn't respond.
It's a massive gamble with potentially irreversible consequences for that legacy. And meanwhile, while all this uncertainty swirls around Sharpe's side, the accuser's legal team, they continue to act with apparent confidence. They've filed their necessary documents on time, they've made public statements through their lawyers, and they appear fully prepared to just move forward with the legal process.
They're playing by the standard rules.
Exactly. And all of this, as we keep saying, because it's critical, it culminates on July 9th. If Sharpe doesn't file a formal response by then, the court can interpret that inaction as an admission, legally speaking. And at that point, the legal process is likely to accelerate, with potentially severe and very immediate consequences for him.
Okay, so what do we make of all this then? Stepping back for a second, the core puzzle we've really explored today is Shannon Sharpe's continued and frankly just confounding silence. In the face of this $50 million lawsuit alleging sexual assault, battery, emotional distress, serious stuff, we've highlighted that specific critical deadline of July 9th that's just barreling towards us, and the potentially dire consequences of a default judgment if he doesn't act. This really isn't just another celebrity scandal, is it? It feels like more. It feels like a significant test.
It really does. A test case, almost.
Yeah, a test of how public figures, especially those with massive influence and constant public visibility like him, handle these direct, severe legal challenges.
It truly is.
Yeah.
And what's really fascinating to consider, as you think about this whole situation, is how Sharpe's, frankly, unprecedented decision to remain completely silent legally, even while staying so active and visible in public life, how that might fundamentally redefine things, or at the very least, intensely question the established norms of handling high-profile legal battles and managing reputation under fire.
Like, is this a new playbook?
Well, that's the question, isn't it? Does this unique approach signal some new, albeit incredibly risky, path for public figures facing severe allegations? Or is it more likely just an outlier, an anomaly that will ultimately just underscore the importance of a swift, direct response, when facing something this serious. It really leaves you wondering, doesn't it, about the long-term ripple effects of this kind of very unusual, very distinct form of silence playing out so publicly. What does it all mean going forward?